Welcome to World Unity Week, a new beginning. We're so glad that you're joining us today. We have a special treat for you with Rick and Elisa Contrero that are going to be sharing with them the dance of the cosmic dreamer. And many people have the feeling that humanity's origins are from the stars. And now we see plans to establish a space station on the moon. This session will include ceremony and conversation about an upcoming event called the Dance of the Cosmic Dreamer to be held in New Mexico in August. The purpose of this ceremony is to honor our origins from the stars and to plant the seeds for humanity's peaceful return to the moon, Mars, and beyond. We honor World Unity Week with a prayer for cosmic unity and a vision of humans being at peace with all sentient and insentient beings here on Earth and throughout the cosmos. Welcome, Elisa and Rick.
Thank you, my dear.
Thank you. So we are very, very grateful to be participating in World Unity Week. And we have a session to share with you, about an hour or so. And my name is Rick Catronio. And that was an excellent job with the pronunciation. It's always a challenge. But Rick Catronio. And I live in upstate New York with my partner and wife, Elisa. And we live in this beautiful land of the Hudson River Valley, the northern portion of the Hudson River Valley. And we have mountains, the Adirondack Mountains and the Berkshire Mountains and the Catskill Mountains are kind of surrounding us. And you can see a picture of a space that we've created a number of years ago. And we'll be talking about work we've been doing now for about 30 years, caretaking for the House of Micah Peace Chamber and other activities. So that's a little tiny bit about me, and I'll invite Elisa to introduce herself now.
Yes. So Rick and I, we first met. We'll be talking a little bit about our story of how we met our teacher, Beautiful Painted Arrow. But on that day, as I was looking and preparing, that was when Rick and I first met, was dancing up in Colorado with Beautiful Painted Arrow. So we have a long history together, and we both live in upstate New York. We're just in different rooms of the house. The the time that I have spent from the time I met Beautiful Painted Arrow until this day has been a beautiful gift, and I have felt so blessed to be able to bring my work as a dancer and a somatic movement educator and therapist in the world together with my spiritual practice. And I'm so happy to share this with you about this particular phase of life.
So we're going to start. I would actually like to offer a little bit of smudge to everyone, virtually smudge this Zoom room. And here we go. Here's a little bit of smoke you may be able to see. Just bless yourself with that smoke, dear Great Spirit. I ask now for the presence of your light and love to help guide and protect us. Great Spirit, I pray that we may become like hollow bones, that we may just carry your voice into the world in a good way and in a loving way. Great Spirit, allow us to completely be out of the way and be of service to humanity in this moment and in the next moments as we share this ceremony and this discussion together. Great Spirit, thank you so much for your presence here in my heart. May all of our words come from the heart and be filled with love and peace. We're going to start with a short meditation. Folks, I'm sure remember COVID, and this was a meditation that we introduced across our global network a few months into COVID. I think we realized fairly early that COVID was something that impacted our lungs. And so when we were thinking from an indigenous perspective and feeling from an indigenous perspective, we looked around to to ponder, what is it in nature that has to do with our lungs? How can we feed our lungs? And so we turn to the trees because we know that the trees are where we get our oxygen from. So we created this singing to the trees practice. And there was at one point, there were like about 1,000 people around the world who were dedicated to carrying this practice for a month of singing to the trees and following this particular meditation. So we're going to invite you now, if you can, to look out a window at a tree or a group of trees or a plant in your room or and visualize a tree or have the sense of a tree in front of you. And we're going to ask you to give thanks to the tree for all that the tree provides that you can easily see. Its beauty. The tree provides shade, fruit, nuts. Trees are a home for the birds. Give thanks for all the trees and the forests and all of the things that you cannot see that you receive from those trees, especially oxygen, which is so essential to supporting our life. Take a moment and bow to the tree as a divine manifestation of spirit or God or whatever you understand as the ultimate.
Open your heart and begin singing to the tree in your own voice. It might be your breathing, it might be a humming, but allow your inner space to begin singing to the trees. And include in your singing the Tiwa sound for tree. The Tiwa sound for tree is piwane, piwane. And so as you're humming or singing, allow that sound, piwane, to vibrate within you and out from you. Initially, you might be aware of an apparent separateness between you, the sound of your voice, and the tree. But maybe you can open your heart more and allow the tree and to sing right through you so that it is a circle. You singing to the tree, the tree singing to you, all at once. As you sing to the tree, allow it to feed oxygen to you and to support your well-being. Allow your singing to connect you with that tree and the inspiration of the tree. The tree is the metaphor for greatness and the heart. Honor the greatness of the tree and the greatness of your heart. Piwane, piwane, piwane.
Allow the practice to deepen and shift, and know that that tree is actually within you. As you breathe, experience the inverted tree or an upside down tree, where the bottom of the trunk of the tree is your mouth, and the passageways of your lungs are the branches and leaves of the tree. Each breath that you take awakens a very lovely tree, and that tree is within you, and it cleanses and purifies all of the breathing passages of your lungs. Experience the vibrancy, experience the light of well-being, experience your chest expanding across your whole body, just as the branches and leaves of a tree spread into the clear blue sky. When you're filled with healing light from the practice of seeing and experiencing that light of the tree within you, open now to see the clear blue sky. Picture the clear blue sky above the tree and let your mind disappear into the silence.
As you focus on the clear blue sky, let the mind disappear Enter the silent experience of being one with all creation. Know that you do not exist as the mind thinks you exist. See yourself in all beings and all beings in yourself. Experience yourself as the unified field of consciousness that is indivisible, always and everywhere. Know that there is only loving awareness without beginning, loving awareness without end, loving awareness.
Truly, most simply, we are loving awareness without end and without beginning. Now, after a time of enjoying that experience, come back to the awareness of your body. Your body, allow it to be filled with light and peace, and give thanks for this moment and all that's present. Know that your loving awareness and what is in front of you is a gift from Spirit. Embrace what is in front of you without grasping, without aversion. Know that you're exactly where you need to be, that your presence is a gift, that you are connected with all beings, that you are loved, that you are loving, and that you are love itself. And just take a few more breaths. Experience that sense of peace and love, connecting to your true nature. And we'll continue on in a moment. Thank you, everybody. So, Elisa and I talked very little about our backgrounds and where we live here in upstate New York. And we mentioned something about New Mexico. And the easiest, perhaps, way of sharing with you how we got to where we are is to share a short video. And it was interesting because we were watching this video after preparing it yesterday and said to ourselves, we're a witness to all of this. Our teacher, all of our teachers, whether it's Beautiful Painted Arrow or Swami Parmanand or Babaji Baldev Singh, all of our teachers say there's nothing here but the divine, that we are not the doer. And so we're just really reflecting on how we just witnessed the work that we're going to be sharing with you, that our highest goal is simply to be of service and to be a hollow bone. So I'm going to share this short video. It'll kind of give you some background, and then we'll pick up in about 3.5 minutes. Can you all see my screen now? Elisa, can you see my screen?
Yes, but it has not started yet. Yes. So thanks for sharing that video, Rick. You caught a glimpse of beautiful painted arrow in the beginning of that video, and he is a great being whose mother was from Southern Ute Reservation, from the Southern Ute Nation, and his father was from Picaris Pueblo. He was born in 1934, and after his mother passed, he moved at a very young age. He moved to Picaris Pueblo in northern New Mexico. So that's where he spent most of his young years, or as he would say, his early childhood socialization happened in Picaris Pueblo. He was a young person who was so deeply moved by sound. He would tell stories of a cup singing to him, and he could then know the name for cup based on the sound that the cup vibrated. And he was so in touch with that vibration. But as a child, he was also brought to or identified, I guess, um, that he was chosen to be placed into what was called a soul chamber by the elders of Picaris, and in that underground chamber. He remained there. He told me, I looked at some notes from a call I had with him, and he told me I was supposed to be there for a month, but they left me there for 3 months. So he had some very mystical, magical experiences in that soul chamber that deeply impacted the teachings that lived in his body, that live in his body to this day.
As Elisa said, Joseph was born in 1934. And just thinking a little bit about history, the US bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end the World War II in August of 1945. So Joseph would have been 10 or 11 years old. The bombs that were developed, the atomic bombs were developed at Los Alamos Lab, which is just a few miles away from Picaris Pueblo, and also not very far from the Southern Ute Nation. At that time, Joseph told us that the elders at Picaris Pueblo saw what was happening, and they undertook a ceremony to bury their weapons. They understood that humanity had now moved to a place where the weapons were so lethal, so destructive that they could destroy the earth and humanity along with it. And so this was really a part of the early childhood impression that Joseph had, very much like the time when he was in that soul chamber. So we're not surprised really by this that in 1983, during the Southern Youth Sundance, he had a vision of building a network of peace chambers around the world where people would chant and pray for peace. I actually met Joseph in 1984 in the very first peace chamber that was built in Bernalillo, New Mexico. I went because a friend from college invited me to a sweat lodge. I was in my early 20s. And after that sweat lodge ceremony, I had a terrible, terrible headache. And so I called him up and I said, Joseph, I don't know what's going on. I have a terrible headache. And he invited me to come in for a healing. He had prepared a medicine bundle for me. And during that time together, during that healing, he talked about how we would be working together for a very long time. He invited me to come to the Southern Ute Sundance that summer. I couldn't do it that summer, but I went the following summer, and that unfolded a whole series of dreams and events that shaped really all of my young adulthood and to my current age of 68. It's been a beautiful lifetime of teachings, and um, and Joseph has just been a beautifully loving teacher who is always reminding us that we do not exist the way that we think we exist, and just do everything you can to remember and be inspired to be a halabon and just to allow God to do the doing. I think Elisa also had a wonderful initial meeting with Joseph.
Yes, it was a surprise meeting. I had been working with a Native American medicine woman for probably about 4 years, and I we were going to gather in Florida where she was going to be teaching a movement meditation referred to as the Emerald Tablets meditation. And we had fasted for days ahead of time and all this preparation for this time when we would be together and she would teach this meditation. So she got sick, and at the last minute, she didn't come. But she said to one of her apprentices, I think you should go ahead and teach this meditation to the group because they've been preparing for so long. And so here I am traveling from New York to Florida, and I was there and I was very focused on this, learning this meditation. And we learned the meditation one night, and then the next morning it was done around a sacred fire, sunrise fire. So there I am in the meditation, and I'm pretty young at the time. This is 1987. And in the meditation, after going through the practice, in the meditation, I'm hearing auditorily, well, first, through my visual field, a phoenix flies through my visual field and bursts into flames. And then I'm hearing beautiful painted arrow, beautiful painted arrow, beautiful painted arrow. And inside I say, shh, be quiet, I'm meditating here. So I finished the meditation. We go into the house where we're breaking the fast. And this man walks up to me and reaches out his hand. So I take his hand and he says, hello, I'm beautiful painted arrow. Well, I was dumbstruck at the moment. I was like, you were just in my meditation. And he said, yes, you were in my meditation as well, and or two. And he said, yes, we're going to work together to heal the planet, as he's still holding my hand. And I was not understanding any of this at the time. Maybe I still don't. But later that day, there was a smaller group of us that went out for lunch, and Beautiful Painted Arrow joined us. He had been there because I guess he was brought in as a backup for after the meditation, and he taught some teachings around sound at that place in Florida. So there we are. I happen to be sitting next to him, and he turns to me and he says, "So, what kind of work do you do in the world?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a dancer." And he said, "Yes, I'm a dancer too. And I'd like to invite you to come dance with me up in Colorado this August." And so I made my plans to come up to Wachichihu, which is where he lived in the Ute Nation, and that's where I met my lovely husband, Rick.
So in this short video, we shared, there was one screen that shared words that were monthly fire ceremony, sun moon dances, solstice chanting, medicine bundles to seed the waters with prayers. These are a number of the things that through our global network of peace chambers that we've been doing. So it's been really wonderful to participate this June here in the 24-hour ceremony led by Chief Phil. And we're here to kind of share that, you know what, for the last 20 some odd years, we've also been gathering our international group to chant for peace, 24 hours of continuous chanting and prayer for peace at the December solstice. So I know Janice likes to use islands of coherence. So we've been sort of cohering over the last couple of decades with Unity Earth and all the wonderful work that's been done by Chief Phil and so many other people around the table. Let me just pause because our hope for this first half hour was to level set, to make sure folks had a basic sense of the work that's happening, the work that we're witnessing in our lives, and perhaps there's some questions. So I'm just going to pause and open it up if anyone would like to ask a question, or I know we have a couple of other folks as well from the Beautiful Painted Arrow community here. So if anybody wants to ask a question or join in the conversation, that would be wonderful. We welcome you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
When you say the work, specifically, what are you referring to?
Thank you, Paul. Well, when I say the work, what I'm referring to is chanting, prayers for peace, vision questing, dancing, sacred dances, um,
The fire ceremonies.
monthly fire ceremonies. We just have such a beautiful palette of apparent activities that we can engage in the world. And of course, all of this is interesting, but ultimately it's really about coming home to ourselves and finding that light within and the vibration of love within. So the work is the external work takes us inside more and more deeply every moment and allows us to become that hollow bone, just simply the presence of God, simply the presence of the divine.
I agree. And I think that it's an important moment right now that we've entered the age of Aquarius. And there's a very much a sufficient percentage of people who want the wisdom teaching. And I have my title is Birthing the New Earth, because the new earth is one of those resonant phrases. And it doesn't have to be local. That's what's interesting now. So birthing the new earth will list events that are happening to birth the new earth. So it would list your events, your location, and so on. And I'll be teaching it largely by connecting people with YouTubes that I see. You know, important ideas like when I think of Beautiful Painted Arrow now, I think he's living in plasma reality, has never not been living in plasma reality. That's a new idea. It's a very important idea, and it is susceptible to vibration. And
Thanks
in
for
way,
coming here,
yeah.
Paul, because I don't know if you know, and Paul came because we sent out an invitation, I'm guessing. But this platform that we're on, One World, and so we should really connect you with the Unity Earth people and the One World people, because this group of folks here are amazingly connected. A lot of what we were talking about not that long ago, Paul.
I think Susan is in the room here and has a question or a comment. Susan, please
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your sharing. I love it, and it mirrors how I met my teacher. But I saw in your video that you said that your organization is the House of Micah, and I know that that's an indigenous prophecy. That's a really important, powerful prophecy, and I wonder if you could talk about that.
Yes, I would be very happy to talk about that. It was one of the little trickster sorts of things that Joseph offered to us. So in the video, we pointed out that the particular stone that we chose that was local to our area is Corinthian granite. And that Corinthian granite has a lot of mica in it. And so when Joseph was here to bless the foundation of our chamber, he called it the House of Micah. He knew that Elise and I were familiar with Hopi prophecies, where there was a reference to the House of Micah and going to the House of Micah, the elders going to the House of Micah to be heard. And
And
so and what we know, of course, is that some of us, if you've heard this part of the story, is that the House of Micah, if you think about Micah, Micah is glass. If I was if it was 500 years ago and I had a vision, I would call a large building that was made of glass. I might call that Micah. So the House of Micah kind of it does refer to the United Nations, the United Nations building in New York City, and the United Nations being the place where humanity was to come together. And the other part of it is that Joseph grew up in Picary's Pueblo, and if you ever look at the pottery that comes from Picary's Pueblo, it's all laced with mica. They make golden pots that are laced with mica. And there were a couple of times early on in our work in the 1990s and 2000 early 2000s that people sort of challenged us, like, why are you called the House of Micah? And Joseph said, if you want to change the name, you can. And we were kind of taught that you should live with what you're given. And if there were going to be challenges that would arise, then we would answer that question. The reason that it was called the House of Mica is that the stone that the building is made up is filled with mica.
And then the other
Thanks.
thing Joseph said during that time was we should have thousands of House of Micas. We should be building House of Micas again and again and again and again in order to bring forth world peace as the prophecy speaks. Thank you for your question.
Susan, did you want to have more conversation about that? Go ahead, please.
Can't unmute. Yes, I really love that. And I don't know if your elder was one of the people that went to the United Nations and was rejected at their opening when the elders thought that the House of Micah was the United Nations. But I know when they weren't allowed to enter and they walked away from there and were not allowed to be seated, and they said that the circle was not completed within the United Nations, that it's just kind of like there's an an opening in the circle. So it just struck me that your House of Micah, you're naming it the House of Micah, is like kind of a fulfillment of that prophecy in a very different way. And I've been looking for that fulfillment because the elders said it was not the United Nations and it would not be the United Nations that would bring about that universal peace because the indigenous people were not allowed to be seated. So thank you for that. That just, it sort of gives me a chill when I saw that, and what you're doing to build these houses of Micah are, all of us and what we're doing collectively. So thank you for sharing that.
Lisa, do you want to talk about Joseph going to the United Nations for a moment?
Sure. I had, we did. I believe, I can't totally remember because I am getting quite a bit older, but I had the great good fortune of going to the United Nations with Beautiful Painted Arrow, and we were invited. He was invited. I was just the driver, and he was invited to speak. Not at the General Assembly. It was more in a conference room setting. And the part I can't remember is how maybe it was connected with URI at the time that connection was made. But he felt very strongly that because that was the body at the time that was being recognized by some people as the place for world peace, that it was important for him to go to the United Nations and ask their permission to build the peace sound chambers around the world, to encourage others to build these peace sound chambers. So it was a very beautiful day, and he did get a letter that said that the United Nations was I don't
In support of
in support of, yeah, that's the good word.
peace
Was in
chambers around the
support,
world.
yeah, of building these peace sound chambers around the world.
The two characteristics of the peace chambers that he wanted to see was that, or that reflected the vision that he had, was that they would be oval in shape and that they would be partly underground and partly above ground, that the peace chambers would be connected to the earth, and that he understood that the peace chambers would create sort of a grid around the planet through the prayers and the chanting and just energetically. And so we will share a video at the end of our session where you'll get to see some of the other peace chambers. Other questions or comments? Paul, you have another to share?
I do. I was wondering whether Susan Stark Christensen, whose contribution I really appreciate, was aware that Thomas Beniaki addressed the General Assembly in December 10th, 1992, and the city was shut down by a storm for 3 days. And then the delegated Hopi elders did speak the prophecy along with 6 other Native nations at the United Nations, and that was in 1993. And I just didn't know if you were aware of that. And I wanted to make sure that you were.
Yes, I was, but thank you very much for bringing that out. And I think it's just a beautiful part of the way in which all of these prophecies are unfolding and being manifest today in this time that we're living in, where we are those peace chambers. We're having to not so much look to the outside anymore, but really looking within and how we're building this together. And I just love that. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much.
And that was what Beautiful Painted Arrows said, that yes, we're building these peace chambers, but ultimately the body is the peace chamber. So as we're chanting, as we're feeling the vibration, as we are in the chambers, those are being amplified, but it is the peace chamber within the physicality of these human bodies. The peace chambers are connected to the underground waterways, and so many of the ceremonies that we do are for the original vision came from the Mer people who gave Joseph this job to do, and took him a little while, but he got it going.
So Rita has a question. Let's bring Rita into the room here. Hi, Rita. I think you should be able to speak if you unmute.
Hello, yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much for bringing this wonderful presentation to World Unity Week. One of the ways I connected with Joseph was through the book by Peter Kingsley, A Story Waiting to Pierce You. Peter was an Englishman who studied into Greek history, and actually had an incredible experience being taken over by this soul spirit of Parmenides. And a beautiful Painted Arrow wrote the foreword for Peter's book. And it's just phenomenal that you're here and we're learning about the peace chambers, but I highly recommend to anyone here in the room to read Peter's book, A Story Waiting to Pierce You, and Joseph's foreword.
Thank you, Rita. That's beautiful. Yes, so in setting up these peace chambers around the world, Joseph traveled extensively and he connected with people. There are peace chambers in the UK and Australia, North and South America, and so I'm not surprised that there's folks on this call who may not have known us but had seen Joseph's work at some point or another. We're going to move on now. I do want to acknowledge that Lisa put something in the chat, and I copied that, and we'll reach out to you after the session. So thank you so much for reaching out. It's wonderful. Joseph traveled around and encouraged people to build peace chambers, and there are still now peace chambers that are being built around the world, even without his individual molecular participation, but rather through hearing about it and talking to other folks who are peace chamber caretakers. So it's quite beautiful to see that the vision continues to unfold. I want to talk now a little bit about how we got to New Mexico, because the second half of that video was all about New Mexico. So we had danced in New Mexico and in Colorado with Joseph for a good 12 years or so. And after that time, Elise and I, we began to have a series of dreams of this landscape. Joseph led dances in New Mexico, and then at one point handed that dance over to his brother, and his brother lived in Indianapolis. And after a couple of years, that dance, there was not a dance in New Mexico at that time. And we sort of interpreted these dreams of this landscape that were repeated, that it's quite a beautiful landscape. a very powerful feeling. And
There was a
basically,
lake nearby, so maybe it was around Abiquiu, north of Santa Fe.
and it was just a powerful feeling of walking into this light. In the dreams, you just sort of disappear into the light as you were walking. And so we set aside about 10 days to go out to New Mexico to see if we might find the landscape that was continuing to appear in our dreams. And we spent the first 8 or 9 days chatting with people, talking about it, and nothing was really kind of aligning. We went and had dinner with Joseph one evening. He said, "Don't worry, you're going to find your place." And the next day, we got a phone call from a woman who was a possible lead, but she was going to be away. Uh, and and she said, well, she changed her plans. She's going to be in town. Why don't we come visit her? Which we did. And her particular place was not the place that we were looking for. But she said, after hearing you and this idea about this sun moon dance and this landscape that you're dreaming of, I think maybe we should go up the hill and visit with my friends, Bill and Sonia. So she took us up on a little four-wheel vehicle, and her dog was chasing on the way. It's up a steep mesa and brought us to this place where these two elderly folks, Bill and Sonia. Sonia was, I think, 96 at the time, uh, greeted us. And we said a little bit about what we were doing. We were looking for a place to hold a sun moon dance and a landscape that we'd seen in our dreams. And she said quite emphatically, that's why we have this place. And we explained a little bit more, and turns out she had a doctor's appointment. They were only there for like 15 minutes with her. And then they had to leave, and then we got to walk around some. And I said, well, we'll call you. We'll call you in a few days after we get home. So we called back and said, remember us? We were there, and this is what we want to do. And she says, we're waiting for your call. We're ready for you. Please come visit. Please come out and do the ceremony. The land is calling you. And we're like, okay, that's pretty cool. So we followed these dreams. We found the landscape. And I'm going to turn it over to Elisa to talk a little bit more about the sun moon dance that we brought to New Mexico that we had been doing here in New York at that time for quite a number of years.
Yes, when Joseph retired, he gifted the dances to his senior students, and he had dances all over the globe, and he kind of assigned them. And to Rick and I, he said, actually, the year before he retired, build an arbor in New York, because there was not a dance here on this land. So fast forward, this year is our 29th year of dancing the sun moon dance here on the land in upstate New York. Um, and when we found that land in New Mexico, we were in a place of trying to expand it to another place, and found the landscape from the dreams. And we completed now 4 sun moon dances in New Mexico from 2015 to 2018. And that the sun moon dance, we were fasting in the desert in the middle of the summer. But what was so amazing about this dance and this putting up of the dance was that everything we needed appeared. Like, we're way out in up on this mesa, and everything was right within very short distance. The cottonwood tree from the Chama River that was right below us, the lava rocks for the sweat lodge. Our host would appear, Bill would appear with different tools at different times to help us move this dance forward. And so we had a miraculous support for this dance.
After the second year of dancing, Sonia, the female of the couple of who were our hosts, passed away. And she was actually the legal owner of the land. And so after a time, the family members approached us and they said, well, you all seem to really love this place. Do you think you can caretake for it? Can you buy it from us? We have to sell it. And we're like, well, we're a small nonprofit. Our annual budget was about $10,000 to $15,000. And we didn't think that was what this, what the market value, so to speak, of that land would have been. But we began talking to people in our community, and it was amazing. Shortly You saw in the video that there was a picture of Elisa and I with masks on, because it was literally during COVID that we raised enough money to purchase that land. And we raised it with the intention, purchasing 22 acres with the intention of preserving it and protecting that land, which we really feel is a sacred landscape. You saw some of the pictures, some of the images in the video. So literally 5 years to the day after we arrived on that land, we closed and we appeared in the bank and we signed the papers. So we have a board of directors and folks in New York and in New Mexico, and we listen to folks. We tried to just to outline what our mission would be here. And so I'm going to have Elisa share our mission relative to this landscape.
So our mission for the House of Micah is, and for this land specifically, is to honor the original inhabitants of the land, focusing on responsible community stewardship as opposed to the capitalist notion of land ownership. To preserve and maintain the natural beauty of the landscape into perpetuity, and to facilitate the presence of ongoing ceremony for peace on the land by developing needed infrastructure.
It was very interesting that when we arrived on this land and had a peace chamber that we were caretaking in New York, it was very interesting that we noticed that there was a small round structure that was almost a little bit underground that Bill and Sonia had built. And we looked at it, and initially everyone thought who came out from New York, like, that's a peace chamber. And so we did that little sanctuary, they called it, for us is the peace chamber. We initiated it into the circle of peace chambers by having Joseph's daughter, Geraldine Rael, who I think was going to join us today, but I didn't see her on the Zoom screen. She spoke to her dad and came up, and he provided her with some teachings and the name for this peace chamber. And the name of the peace chamber is, "In the beginning, we stood up and became two-leggeds." This is the name of the peace chamber. In the beginning, we stood up and became two-leggeds. There's a short video on our website about this naming ceremony that just kind of shows you, and she kind of made some jokes like, why didn't he name it, Little Buffalo, or,
Baby buffalo.
But
Or
she was like,
yeah.
you really have to think about this. But the meaning of "in the beginning we stood up and became two-leggeds" was immediately apparent to Elisa and I. What we understood it to mean was that when we stood up as humanity, we became two-leggeds. We became the prayer makers. We became the peacemakers. We became the ones that were responsible for offering prayers and taking care of this landscape. And so for us, that meaning of "in the beginning we stood up and became two-leggeds" is like, now we have a new beginning. It's an opportunity for humanity to step up and truly become caretakers of this land. It's our calling. It's our charge. We were charged by the giving us that name. We were charged with this notion that we're the prayer makers. Humanity is here to caretake for this place. We're here to be selfless servants of all that exists. And so to us, it's a calling, it's a responsibility, and it's a love. And it's a lot of it, of course, again, is just simply being the witness and getting out of the way and realizing that we are not the doers. So you notice that in that third bullet of our mission was to develop some needed infrastructure. The first number of years that we did the Sun Moon Dance, Bill and Sonia were there. The house was there. We had some safe place where people could prepare some food and this and that. So we are now in the midst of building an adobe structure on this land, and I want to share with you a 4-minute video that that shows you the process of building this adobe, which we started in April of this year. We're working with an indigenous woman-owned company that specializes in adobe construction and making adobe construction affordable. And one of the funniest things that I heard people talk about when I first began interacting with this company was they basically said, yeah, in the old days, it was all of the indigenous people lived in adobe, and the rich people lived in stick-built houses. And now it's all the rich people in New Mexico that are living in the adobes, and indigenous people and poor people are living in stick-built houses and mobile homes. So their mission is to try to reintroduce adobe as an affordable building green method. And so we're going to share this video so you can watch a little bit about the magic of how this all works. It's pretty cool. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So the walls are up. We have a roof to do, windows and doors, and a little bit of landscaping and portals that we hope to do July or September. And anybody that wants to contribute, you notice that there was a little QR code there. So Elisa, our time, we have 7 minutes left. So I'm thinking we should get right into the Dance of the Cosmic Dreamer.
Yes. So after completing 4 years of dancing up on the mesa, I was speaking to Joseph on the phone and to say, hey, we finished 4 years, woohoo. And he said, okay, and your next assignment is. And that's when he gave us the new assignment of the Dance of the Cosmic Dreamer. And the Dance of the Cosmic Dreamer is to plant seeds on the moon and Mars for humanity's eventual peaceful return to the stars. And that would make us understand that we came from the stars. Beautiful Painted Arrow always spoke about the star beings, and so not only that we came from the stars, but that we will return from the stars to the stars, um, and that we should go peacefully, and we should go with peace in our hearts, and with a prayer in our hearts.
With
So
humility, kindness, love.
yeah, kind of circles back in, but it definitely has been. Um, and it's an opportunity. The Dance of the Cosmic Dreamer is an opportunity to walk and dance and sleep and dream on the sacred land overlooking Plaza Blanca in northern New Mexico. And the dance is a hope for the future. We are planting seeds for humanity's peaceful return to the stars. And we dance to honor the essential nature of who we are, which is love. Last year's Dance of the Cosmic Dreamer, it was so touching because the next day, after we had danced the night and then slept on the land, as we woke up, there was a gentle rain. And Beautiful Painted Arrow would always speak about the blessing rain that came after ceremony. And what we found out later that day was that it was a particular unusual weather pattern over northern New Mexico. There were no clouds within the sky of New Mexico except between Abiquiu and Los Alamos. And I'll just circle it back, Los Alamos being where the atomic bomb was developed. So that blessing rain, and then to be told by people that there was a blessing rain right there was all that was needed to know that our work had been done for that year.
So we are conserving and protecting this land. So we are putting out a call for a small group, 30 to 35 people, to join us in New Mexico to offer these prayers, to be the kindness, to be the love that sends out this prayer to the moon, to the stars that gather shortly after the lunar eclipse and shortly after a solar eclipse of the summer. It's time for us to put out that vibration, put out that coherence into the universe, and to raise our consciousness as humanity, so that when we leave this planet, which we are already doing, we do it peacefully and with love and from our very highest potential possibilities. So we're each a cosmic dreamer. We came from the stars. We're born at this time to be the peacemakers, to be the caretakers. We have to plant these seeds of inspiration within ourselves, within our hearts first, and then to share them and let that grow. We live in this moment. We have to live in this moment, not in the future, and wake from this worldly dream that we're experiencing of attachment and anger and fear and all those things that people have been talking about, and just allow that essence of love to be our guide as we continue to fly as humanity was intended to do. So I put in the chat a handout that has lots of information about us. Our website, in case you didn't guess, is www.houseofmicah.org. We have two different mailing lists that we can receive, that we can send out to different people who are interested in activities here in New York versus in New Mexico. And we're really working to build community in New Mexico. We have a very strong community here in upstate New York, and we have a wonderful global community. people, some of whom are on this call, Steve City from Tennessee, and Paul from Woodstock, New York, and a handful of other folks. But we need to build some community there in New Mexico. There's so many wonderful things happening in New Mexico. And this
Thank you. Thank you
yes.
so much, Rick and Elisa. Thank you. Thank you for everyone who has joined us for this wonderful session today and those who are watching us on the live streams. We're going to stop the session now and prepare for the next session. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon.